This is The Neutral Position, hosted by Nick Palmisciano, bringing honesty and reason back into conversation. Here's your host, Nick Palmisciano.
I want to take a quick moment to thank one of our sponsors. When the founders of Ugly Chews reached out to sponsor the program and I looked at their website and saw the chews, I have to tell you, I thought Ugly Chews were appropriately named. They're very ugly and your dog chews on them. Nailed it. Then the samples arrived and I realized they are not named correctly. They are far, far uglier than the word ugly lets on. They're hairy. They're not artificially colored. They're gross. But you know who didn't find them gross? My athletic body with a dumb face that won't let him breathe, Boston Terrier Rufus. Rufus can't get enough of them. Instead of sitting around slobbering and struggling to breathe, he sits around slobbering on an ugly chew while he struggles to breathe. He loves the damn things. These uglier than ugly chews are healthy. There are no artificial ingredients. There are no chemicals. It's just disgusting, horrific nature wrapped up in an ugly sun-dried chew. And in addition to being good for your dog's digestion, these things don't fall apart and get soggy like rawhide. I hate to say it because they're so damn ugly, but they're the best thing to happen to dogs since man let wolves get close to the fire and domesticated them. And if you're not happy with them, Ugly Chews gives you your money back. So if you want to make your dog happy and healthy, go to uglychews.com. That's right, uglychews.com. Hey guys, welcome to The Neutral Position. I am honored to have Patti Katter here with me today. Patti, tell us a little bit about yourself.
Hi, Nick. It's a pleasure to be on the show. So my name is Patti Katter, and I am best known, I guess, for podcasting, or Ken's wife. But I've been a podcaster since 2007. So I've been podcasting for quite a while.
That's a long time.
It is.
So 2006 was when I started Ranger Up. There was no easy way to podcast back then. And there was no Facebook. There was no Instagram. There certainly wasn't, like TikTok. Back then, like, how did you even stand up a podcast? How did you get the word out?
I never intended for it to grow the way that it grew. So back in the day, I just started this little tiny online talk radio show for military spouses. It was when my husband Ken was deployed in Iraq, and I thought it would be a great way just for the military spouses to stay connected with one another, because some of them started moving off of the base, or some of them were going back home to their families while their loved one was deployed. So I started on this little tiny platform. It was called Talk Shoe Radio. It wasn't even technically a podcast.
Yeah. And so what was that like? So, I mean, when people don't understand, when a thing doesn't exist and then you start it, it's a different thing. Like me starting a podcast now, right? We started, I'm not allowed to call this a podcast. Hollywood behind the camera tells me it is a show, not a podcast. So the show, I'm not the first person to do this, millions of people have podcasts now. So for me to start this, it's very easy. For me to start Ranger Up was very hard because there was no social media. I had to find ways of getting the message out. How did you get the message out when you're starting this at a time where individual shows were not really a thing? I mean, it wasn't a thing, and you couldn't just slap it on Facebook and throw some money behind it because it didn't exist. So how'd you do it?
Right. So it just started out to be a nice little group for the local military spouses. And then, in the military community, word travels really fast. So I would have a friend who listened on, whatever day of the week that we would have the show on, and she would tell her friend, hey, you should listen to this this little online talk radio because it has some really great points. You can connect with other spouses. You don't have to go to in-person meetings. And the show, you could listen to it anywhere you're located. So you could listen to it in the middle of nowhere if you wanted. You didn't have to be at a military space or a place that the military gives you. So a base. So
was it all like word of mouth connection?
Mm-hmm.
So like
it was.
Did they have Spotify back then?
No, I don't think so. No.
So where was it stood up? Like on a blog, like a website, I guess, like an individual website.
Yeah, so what I had this little website. It was called Christian Military Wives back in the day, and I created an online forum. I don't know if you remember forums.
I do. So I was a computer nerd back in the day. So I started with, if you remember, you probably don't. I think you're younger than me, but I'm not sure. BBSs.
Oh, yeah.
Do you remember BBSs?
I had one, yeah.
You had a BBS,
yes.
Okay. So I was on BBSs as my handle back then. I haven't shared this with anybody. Was Phantom. Oh, that was my BBS.
How original.
That was my BBS. Hey, back then it was. I was doing Phantom. So like, I was doing. I made computer viruses in like assembly language and BASIC and like. Not to do like real harm to anybody, but like our friends, we would destroy each other's computers because that was funny to, teenagers in the 80s. But so yeah, I remember forums. I'm sorry for the sidebar.
Oh, that's great. Well, we had a forum, and on this website, I mean, people would just have to Google, literally, Christian military wives in Google, and it would pop it up.
Okay, but so Google existed.
It did. I'm not sure how old Google is, though, so don't put me on the spot there.
I think Google popped up around 96, 97.
That sounds
Tom,
about
can
right.
you, let's see how good my memory is.
Okay.
So while he's looking that up.
Yeah, so I started this forum, and it just kind of grew, and then people started connecting more and more online, especially in the military spouse community back during the wars when people were looking for answers or searching for other people who understood. So the women just started gravitating towards the site, and like I said, they would tell their friends, and their friends would tell their friends, and so it grew a little bit, but I kind of started feeling boxed in after a few years of just having this online talk radio, and then things changed for me too. No longer was I a military spouse in 2010, but my husband, he medically retired from the military, so then I was a veteran spouse, and so during that time, I just kind of rolled and did a little pivot and started a blog talk radio. And did that.
And what was the difference from, the Christian military wives to the blog talk radio? What did you change?
I changed the format of the show, so it wasn't just military spouses anymore. It was actually military members I was bringing onto the show, talking to the veterans themselves, and then also community members. I even had somebody from an organization that was a psychologist who would come on and talk about the PTSD or the brain injuries that some of these guys were having after returning from war. So it changed quite a bit from just being this little spouse fun get together to like, wow, now we're reaching more communities.
And how do you, so I always find it interesting because we're going through this now. This show is relatively new, and already from the first episode to now, this is, I don't know exactly where we are, but the 14th or 15th episode that we filmed, it's changed. Like, our format's changed a little bit, how we structure it's changed a little bit. How did you, like, when you were going into this, what were you thinking was critical to change? Like, how did you say, I need this format, and what were the reasons for it? I'm asking that because I think sometimes when people start things, they think, well, what the thing that I made is what it has to be. But I anticipate that a year from now, this show is even more different than it is now because we've got to iterate and continue to improve. So how did you approach this? Because you've now iterated multiple times, and I'm jumping ahead, but
Yeah, I mean, really, for the biggest thing, I guess, for me is when I started out, I never intended for it to grow into what it is today. So I was just doing it to help other people. And actually, through all the years, I've always continued just to do it to help other people. I figure, a podcast platform or TV or radio or wherever you're putting yourself out there, if you're helping other people, you're going to help a lot more people on those bigger platforms than you could just helping your neighbors. So I always felt like my destiny was just to kind of be a bigger moving part of this universe and leave something better behind. So I never really put much thought.
That's a big statement right there. Like, my destiny. Like, I like it. I like it. I need to start thinking bigger like that, Tom. I'm always like, I'll do a nice show, and you're like, my destiny is to be part of the you know, like I like
Yeah.
it. I'm sorry.
Oh, by the way, Google was started in August of 1998.
But when did it launch?
That's when it. 4th. I'm sorry, September 4th.
Okay.
There you
My
go.
birthday.
Wow.
Okay. All right.
That seems a lot. I was expecting 95, 96, really.
No.
But
Yeah, I thought it was later, but that makes sense.
That's crazy.
It killed everything.
Oh, yeah.
Like Google, because it used to be like, are you on Web Crawler? Are you on Alta Vista? Are you on, you know, whatever your thing was,
Bing.
Ask Jeeves.
Yeah.
Yep.
And then all of that just got smoked the second Google came out.
Within like a year, right?
It was like,
It was
why-
almost instantaneous.
yeah, why am I on anything other than Google?
Yeah, there's this new fangled thing called a search engine.
All right. Anyway, back to
Yeah.
like, how do you iterate?
Yeah, so I never really had a strong plan, honestly. I just kind of learned to, like I've said before, like just pivot and move, because I just felt like I was always trying to help somebody somehow in different ways. And in my life, I grew in different ways, so I would kind of like a butterfly, I guess. You know, you start out as this little cocoon. I had no idea what was about to happen, I guess.
All of your comparisons are better than mine.
I have a
Destiny, we've got a metamorphosis happening.
I have a vivid imagination.
I'm like, I got bored with the old thing and started a new thing. Like,
You do really great at
I appreciate it.
making new things, though. Oh, my
I
goodness.
appreciate it.
Yeah, so basically, I never really had a huge plan moving forward. Honestly, not until 2020 have I ever looked at my stats.
Huh.
So
Wow.
I didn't ever care about that. And I still, honestly, I don't really care about my stats. I put it out there because it helps people know, like, oh, she's actually serious about
Sure.
what she does.
Yep.
But all the way until 2020, I never thought, like, who's listening to my show? Honestly, when I did see how many listeners I had, it kind of freaked me out.
I'll bet.
Yeah. Like, oh my
Because you've got a huge show.
I do.
Like,
Yeah.
you know, and I've known about you for a long time. Like, you know, we've been Facebook friends and I've heard your show. And I'll be honest, I listened to it because it was, you know, at the time, like in the military space. And I didn't have any idea. I didn't actually have any idea how big your show was. Like, you know, we asked you to come on and you sent your team sent your bio, and it was like, her show's this big? Like, it's wild.
Yeah, I don't like thinking about it.
Yeah. Our show is not as big, so you can have less stress being on this show. What do you think is the reason that you have, you know, millions of listeners? Because that's not an easy thing.
Mm-hmm. You know, honestly, I think about it sometimes and I wonder, like, is it just because I'm down to earth? My guests are always down to earth. People relate to that. I don't yell on my show. Nobody's screaming on my show.
Do you want to yell on this show?
Maybe. Do you want me to?
Yeah,
You
you can
can.
yell. Yeah, yell at Tom.
Tom,
Yeah.
stop.
Got it.
That was a yell? See, I feel like I could definitely yell.
I mean,
at
I
you
could
better.
probably do that better, but I don't want to.
Damn it, Tom!
I love my job. I love my
You're
job.
fired.
Whoa.
I always
Well, that's not punishment. That's not punishment.
So now is a good time to tell everybody, Tom has a skull collection.
Oh,
I'm not joking. Tom has a skull collection.
like humans?
Yeah.
Or?
Several.
Tom, do you want to tell us about your
You're
skull
not fired.
collection?
I was just joking.
No, I know.
Nice.
No, yeah, I basically, I started having them for when I was in illustration for just anatomical study and medical illustration and stuff, and just really liked them. I don't know why. I just really liked it, and I needed other examples.
For those of you that don't know, Tom has been voted most likely to be a serial killer at the Dieseljack Media universe.
He was a quiet boy, kept to himself.
No one would ever say, wow, I never expected that. We'd all say,
Yeah,
we knew
yeah,
it was a time
yeah,
bomb just
yeah.
waiting to go off.
Yeah, you know how, that's right.
I have a lot of thoughts going through my head right now.
Yeah.
That
I
happens.
kind of want to interview you later.
Yeah, you want to interview my wife?
You don't want to open up that can of worms.
As long as she's still alive, right?
Do you get recognized?
I
you
have
like it?
started to, but I was actually just talking to this girl this morning that is friends with me. She was at my house early in the morning, 3:30 a.m., And we were having this conversation. I said, most of the work I have done has been in like DC or other areas.
Yep.
It's not really close to my house, but now close to home, people are starting to listen and talk. And I was really embarrassed. I was in the grocery store the other day, and this man at the cashier, he's like, "You're that podcaster, aren't you?" And I was just like, "Yeah."
Wait till you go to the airport.
Yeah.
You start getting recognized there.
Yeah, I like to lay low key.
It's weird, right?
Yeah.
Like, it's weird.
Yeah.
I've gone through like phases of my life.
Mm-hmm.
So at the peak of Ranger Up, when I was still doing that, we were very big on social media. I was well known in the military community. And so I would get stopped in very random places. So we did a video called the Ranger Up workout video, where we were like in short shorts and like stacking and like doing all kinds of ridiculous military things, but to dance. And I was in a Best Buy with my, at the time, 5-year-old daughter and 3-year-old son. And, I forgot what we were getting, but it was that hectic parent moment where you're like, I just want to kind of get through this. And these 3 guys, and they were so happy. They're like, "Oh my God." And they were like, "Can we please can we take this picture?" And they wanted to do like a military stack on a door. And I'm basically like asking the Best Buy lady to like watch my kids and like 10 feet away from me,
Yeah.
so that another person can take this picture. And it was like, that was a weird moment. And then like I kind of walked away from being in the spotlight for a little while. And then now it's more like dudes that are like, "Oh, I saw you on the Bad News Network," or "I saw you on Fox," or So it's a different recognition. It's not like a excited recognition. It's like let's talk about a thing recognition. I don't know if it's better or worse, but there have been a few interesting moments. So what's the weirdest one you've had?
I was at a concert one day, and there was a man behind me, and I was talking to my friend, and he didn't look very nice. Like, I was a little nervous about him. He came up and he's like, "You're that podcaster. I recognize your voice." Like, he looked real gruff, I guess, is how I would describe him. And then after we started talking, I was like, "Well, how did you hear my podcast?" Because normally it's like military community, and he's a military veteran.
Oh.
And I was like, "Oh, well, that was actually really cool." It was weird though, because I was at a concert screaming my head off and not my typical podcast voice.
And he recognized your voice from that.
Yeah, he did.
That's pretty wild.
And he was behind me, so
That's
that was
pretty wild.
Yeah, that was even more weird. Yeah.
Because your voice, it's not like some people have very recognizable voices, like Fran Drescher, it's her, right? You don't have that kind of voice. I mean, you have a great radio voice, but it's not like
distinct.
It's not crazy distinct.
Right.
So to pick it up at a concert, that must be a fan.
That was a weird. Yeah,
that was
a
fan,
kind of weird.
Yeah,
and I've learned you have to be really careful what you say on air too, because you do get crazies, right?
Crazies.
I mean, you know that.
You
I'm
get
sure.
crazy. I think it's worse for women. I think it's worse for women because I get aggressive people in the comments that are like, "You're a piece of crap for this," or "You're trash," or what, but I don't get if girls like you, they might send you pictures or whatever, but they don't like stalk and stay with you. Like guys, I feel like, I'm sure you have dudes that are like in love with you.
I've had 2 that I had to block recently because they just were crazy.
They don't stop.
Right.
And it's like they have in their mind that you're going to end up together, and you're like, "I don't know you. I'm married. Like, please leave me alone." Like, I can only imagine. The bigger your show gets, it must get weirder.
So in the military community, I noticed that it was worse for me as labeled caregiver, because I had a lot of other proclaimed caregivers out there who might not like something I say, and they're like, "Well, you're a spokesperson and you're supposed to be representing caregivers." But I'm just a person at the end of the day, representing my own views and opinions.
Yep.
So I do remember having some really weird comments.
And everybody's experience is different, and especially, and I don't know what, your situation. I don't know how bad, Ken was, or how challenging that was, but I know a lot of military caregivers, and the the situations vary greatly, and they also vary over time. Like some people have spouses that were in real bad shape that have steadily improved. Other people have spouses that were in pretty good shape and have, really digressed. Nobody knows but you.
Yeah.
Kind of what you've gone through. And
And it's true. I always tell people too, you never know what's going on behind closed doors, because not only are they a caregiver, but they're also a daughter or a friend. So like in my case, I had other things going on with my parents being sick and things like that. But to get back on track about how do you deal with people like that who are nasty online, I just block them now. I used to try to like vindicate myself or try to tell people, what I thought they needed to hear for my side of the story. But now I'm like, you don't need a glimpse of that personal life.
Yeah.
Like that's my private life.
I'm the same. I will talk forever to reasonable people.
Yes.
Like if somebody writes me and is like, Nick, I disagree with you. Here's why, I will talk to somebody that has 0 followers for a long period of time. I don't care. I don't care about that at all. Like I'm not only going to talk to, verified people or, whatever. I think that's silly. But if somebody is a jerk, like, and I don't care if the person being a jerk is, somebody with, no followers or Elon Musk, right? It doesn't matter to me. If somebody is just a jerk that you can tell their intention is just to be a pain in the ass, like, why am I going to spend any time with this person? Like, it doesn't make any sense. You're not coming at it from a good place. We're not going to get to a good place. I could agree with you completely, and you're still going to hate me.
Yeah.
So, like, go hate me in silence. Like, I don't need it.
Yeah, so I'm a huge fan of the block button. I have
Yeah.
no problem blocking somebody, especially, you don't know them anyway, so whatever.
Yeah, in my youth, I used to, like, the Peak Ranger up days, I would, like, say, hey, here's my address. But I'm in my 40s now, and
Much more
we
mature.
don't do those sorts of things anymore. We are a
Fine, civilized bunch of
we're
people.
a civilized people now.
Although he does have a skull collection, and so he must go to bat for you once in a while.
Civilized battles.
Many years ago, I was one of 2 North Carolinians to be on the ISIS kill list, and I think Tom was the only employee. I think Tom's been with me for a long time. I think, Tom, you were the only person that was still here then.
Yeah.
And it was like the most exciting moment for like the company. Everyone was like, yeah, it was like, it looked like the gear up montage in any action film, like Expendables, like, everyone's like, oh, and we can put a safe here. And
Immediately everybody's out on the range the very next week. Learning.
Yep, that's right.
I do remember that, though, because I remember I had this Christian military wives, and I'm like, I'm going to be a target. And the next thing I know, I remember hearing about you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was weird because I'm used to getting contacted by the FBI because, and this, like if you're in the military, your friends are occasionally they're going to go for TS clearances, or maybe they're going to work for the agency, or maybe they're working for the FBI. So FBI agents will come and they will talk to you to run their clearance. So this FBI agent calls me and is like, hey, I need to talk to you tomorrow. Like, sure, no problem. I assumed it was a security clearance for one of my SF buddies or something. Dude shows up and he's like, hey, I don't know how to tell you this, but you're on the ISIS kill list. And like, he shows me all of this traffic of these people, like, here, and they had my home address and they had my work address, and it was like, and I asked him, like, how real is this? And he was honest. He was like, I doubt they're going to hire like a Syrian freedom fighter to come and actually kill you. It's more like if there's an idiot out on the dark web that wants to prove himself, you would be like the potential easy target. And so it was crazy, though. I had to go back and tell my wife that. My wife, who's English, comes from a no-gun society, and was like, hey, I don't know how to say this, but I'm on the ISIS kill list. Here's what. And she was like, Roy, looks like, and she doesn't actually sound like this. Everything is Dick Van Dyke. I Dick Van Dyke everything. She has more of like that nice highbrow English accent. But Roy, looks like I'm going to have to learn how to use a gun then. What should we do with the doors and the windows? Do we need some additional security? And, so next thing you know, we have like bulletproof windows. And yeah, it was wild. And the best part was that I made it onto the list 4 months before Tim Kennedy did. Oh. And so I was like, it's not easy, being as dangerous as I am. And like, he was so mad, and then he made it on the list, and then he was very excited and kind of, he made like 14 videos about it. So
I remember like that next week you were out of the office from time to time, and you'd come back and be like, what were you doing? And he was like, oh, well, I had to go to the schools. Because I have kids, and I had to give the schools the 411. That must have been really tough.
Yeah, how did you deal with that?
That was the only thing I worried about, is like somebody grabbing the kids.
Yeah.
That was the only thing, But now my kids are all older, and they're pretty lethal in their own right, so I worry less about it. I've got one little one left, but the rest of them are all. The girls are, I've got one daughter who is like a elite wrestler. Like truly an elite wrestler, and my other daughter is a badass jiu-jitsu player, and like I don't worry about them too much. Like they can handle themselves. Anyway, that we digressed. So, you've got these people that they become infatuated, and you block them, and do they ever skirt around that?
Yes. So this one that just happened this last week, actually, I screenshotted some of his messages and sent them to a few of my friends and said, if anything happens to me, it's this guy. Because he was writing things like, for us, and like, I heard the show you did for us, and I'm like, no, I'm not gonna have a serial killer show next.
Like how do they get there?
Yeah.
Like how do you get like?
Did you have a guess? Like his name was John, and this was a John, and he's like, "Oh, you did that for me."
No, I don't even want to say his name on here, but I'll tell you after.
Okay.
I mean, 99.9% of people that listen or watch are awesome.
Yes.
And they're like, I'm incredibly appreciative. But man, that 0.01%, you're like, what happened in your life?
Yeah, and I just, at the end of the day, I think they're very lonely. Obviously, there's some mental illness there, I think. And then there's just some psychos. I
think this generation or this time period, I think it almost curates loneliness. Because, you used to have to go out and be with people. And being with people is very different than talking to them online. It just is. Like it's healthier to physically be in a room with people. I talk about this all the time. I've never had anybody just walk up to me and be a jerk.
Me either. Not,
but online, they will say anything. And without repercussion, without worrying about it, and not even assess that they might be cruel or unkind for saying these things.
Yeah, they don't even think about it at all. They don't think about it. Yeah, I mean, that's a huge deal. And, we call them keyboard warriors. I know a lot of, especially in the veteran community, there were a lot of them at one point. I remember several other, I'll say leaders in the community, such as yourself, but others who really experienced a lot of hate online that they normally wouldn't have. I mean...
No, in real life, never.
Right. And especially in the veteran community. In real life, when I go to events, everybody is so kind and so nice, and there is only a very small amount of people who aren't, even online, because my show is positive, it's uplifting. I mean, if you're trying to argue with me online, it's not going to happen.
Yeah.
And then they get mad because you don't argue.
Yep. So you're ducking me.
Yeah, you're damned if you do, damned if you don't.
You blocked
sometimes.
me, you're afraid of me. Like, I'm not afraid of you. Like, I just don't want to talk to you.
Yeah, they have too much time on their hands. A lot of them, I'm assuming they're not working a productive job. They don't feel good, insecure where they're at in life. So you just have to take into account that it's a mental illness probably.
Backing up again, so you started this second show But that isn't where things really took off. So where did you
Right.
go from there?
Yeah, so there was a point in my life, it was around 2014, 15, and 16 that I was like, gosh, I just feel really boxed in because when I met my husband, to those of you who don't know, he was just getting out of the Marines. He had a 10-year break-in service. He was a police officer. During that 10 years, right after he got out of the Marines is when I met him. So I had my own life. Like, I didn't really know him in the military when he was in the Marine Corps. So I was an author. I was a journalist. I actually was a journalist since the 10th grade. I wrote for the Flint Journal at one point in 10th grade. That's
really cool.
Yeah, I had a lot of cool things I was doing, and so people don't understand that I actually was somebody before. I was an Army wife, and so
That's got to be frustrating.
it was because I always felt, and part of it was my fault. It was my marketing. I didn't know what I was doing, and I didn't even think I was marketing.
I do think I think it is a hard thing to be a military spouse. Because I do think that, like you're going in, in the community, you really do kind of, at least this is the way it was when I was in, you really do kind of get pigeonholed as, you're Lieutenant so-and-so's wife, you're Captain so-and-so's wife, you're Sergeant so-and-so's wife. You don't know anything about that person other than the attachment to the spouse. And inside the military, there's nothing more important than the military. So, I mean, you could have a woman married to a sergeant that is like a powerful, executive crushing life, but to like the entire battalion, it's just, Sergeant Smith's wife. And I think that is something that they haven't really improved meaningfully. That's my impression anyway.
No, it's true.
So what does that do
Yeah.
to you mentally, going from, being a person that, like, I mean, you said you wrote a book before you guys got together?
I was writing. I actually was a CEO of a newspaper for teenagers.
Man.
I was doing a lot of things, but everybody recognizes me as the military veteran caregiver.
Yeah.
Because remember, reverting back to that story about how we started with the bulletin board online and the forum and all that stuff, the internet just takes what it wants. So it collects all that information. Didn't have my backstory because I didn't put it out there. I mean, I never did think I would be podcasting this long, honestly. So I didn't really think about the long-term ramifications of people knowing me as only a military veteran spouse or military spouse. But even at events, I would speak at events for the military community on behalf of caregivers. So then I was labeled, this is Patti Katter, she's a military veteran caregiver. And so that, it just felt like walls were kind of closing in on me. I'm a very open person. I'm a free spirit. I'm an Aries. I like to switch things up a lot. And I really just felt boxed in. And so there was a point, finally, I just felt like I was kind of in a pressure cooker, where I can only talk so much about being a military veteran caregiver.
I get it.
And I just had to expand.
I get it.
It was during that time that I just started exploring different ideas for shows and came across another show, The Decision Hour, and they needed a co-host. So I went ahead and decided to do co-hosting with Adam Bird on The Decision Hour, and that really helped me just relax enough to think like, oh my gosh, I can finally interview other people, and it doesn't always have to be about military, and I still love my military people, but I can also broaden the horizon and interview all sorts of people. And the first guest I had on my show, Wake Up with Patti Katter, after I decided to start another show that's open to everybody who has any kind of trials, the first guest was a guy who was paralyzed in a car accident. And I don't know how many veterans reached out to me and said that his story resonated with them, even though they weren't hurt the same way. He was a paraplegic. And some of the military community needed to hear his story because he turned into a bodybuilder. And one of the veterans, he's like, I didn't even know there was bodybuilding for paraplegics. And this guy was a civilian. So, that was when I knew that something good was happening, that I didn't feel boxed in anymore as a caregiver, and I was just like my own person again.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's awesome. I totally understand it. You know, when I got out of the military, you know, I went to grad school. I got a Fortune 100 gig. I started Ranger Up as a hobby. It was a hobby. It was like, I want to stay connected, but and then, it blew up, became a real business. And at some point, unhealthily, it almost became my identity. Mm-hmm. And when I stepped away from Ranger Up, when we did a business deal with some great folks in Ohio, at first it was rough because it was kind of like my identity was gone, but actually it was like the most freeing thing ever, because all of a sudden I didn't have to be that military influencer guy. And you don't realize how much you think, like, I have to do X, I have to do Y. And I've never been the person that, like, I never pandered. I'm always honest. So, like, there have, it wasn't a matter of that, but it was like, you do feel trapped sometimes. Like, this is what I do, this is who I am. And, like, getting out of that was huge. And, with this show, we absolutely have veterans on. My company helps a lot of veteran organizations, but it's nice to be Nick the civilian and not Nick the military influencer, whatever that means.
Yeah, and it's great for your followers to see that too, because they can see, like, oh gosh, I was in the military like Nick.
Yeah.
He's not stuck anymore. I don't need to be stuck anymore.
The military is a phenomenal foundation. I actually think it's about the best foundation that a person can have for life, but it should be a foundation. Unless you're a career military officer, but even then, right? Like, a career is typically 20 years. If you're a general officer or a senior sergeant major, maybe it's 30, but that's actually not your life. There is going to be a civilian career. So I think it's really important to not look at yourself as your job. And I mean that for any job. I think it was unhealthy when I was in the military to think of myself as, a soldier. I think it was unhealthy when I was at Ranger Up to think of myself as the Ranger Up guy, as opposed to, being a person that has, goals that are individual. So it sounds like you were wrestling with that.
I was a lot, because I knew a lot of people looked up to me too. So I never wanted to let anybody down, especially the military spouse community. I started a group on Facebook. We had, I don't know how many people, couple thousands of caregivers online. And I was their leader. And so when I stepped down, people would reach out to me, and still to this day, if somebody reaches out to me and they have a question,
you help.
I try to help them. Absolutely. But it was hard because I felt like I was letting people down. But I did learn that if I'm not there, there's always going to be somebody else to replace me, or they're going to have to start learning to do some of those things on their own. And that was hard for me to swallow, I think.
I think, for me, it's freeing. One of the things my dad always said is, like, everyone's replaceable. And stepping away from Ranger Up, for example, there are so many options now. I mean, there's Grunt Style, there's 9line, there's a bunch of brands I don't even know because I don't even pay attention to it anymore. No one needs me to be there. Like, and I'm happy to help people however I can, but it's not like you do have to, with your own life, I think you have to be selfish. I think a good life is one of service, but I think you should serve how you want to serve at any given point, and you don't have to be married to whatever you have done. That's how I think about it.
Yeah, it's true. And I think listening to your gut is really important. Because if you don't, you'll have, I'm sure you, the same thing, as influencer. use that word kind of often because, I mean, really, you're an influencer. Like it or not, I'm an influencer. Like, we don't like the terminology. I know that. Any influencer I know, they actually don't like that word. But the fact of the matter is, we have to listen to our gut because we do have so many people coming at us, right? So you have people who want to do business with you, people who want to go into business with you because you worked your butt off and you created something super successful, and now there's those people wanting to ride on your coattails.
I printed 2 T-shirts out, one for me and one for Tim Kennedy, and we call it the Joe Rogan Pipeline, but I have a T-shirt that says, "No, I will not introduce you to Tim Kennedy," and I made one for him that says, "No, I will not introduce you to Joe Rogan," because people will play the long. I'm not joking. Like, they will reach out to me, befriend me, say a bunch of nice things, and I'm always waiting for it. And then boom, hey, this would be a great thing for Tim Kennedy. Do you think maybe we could bring him in on it? And it's all like that was the plan all along. And they're not as crafty as they think they were.
Right.
And then on the rare occasion when somebody gets access to Tim, they really want to get on the Joe Rogan podcast. And Tim is never going, he has like put it in stone. Like, I am not going to use my friendship with Joe Rogan to like help people get whatever their thing is. Like, they can reach out to Joe, they can get on, they can do something cool enough that Joe is interested. Like, I would never ask. And you know, we've been very good friends for a long time. I would never say, "Tim, get me on Joe Rogan." Never.
But Tim, you need to get him on Joe Rogan.
You know, no. But yeah, like, I would say, I don't know, 50-60% of the people that reach out to me ultimately just want me to introduce them to Tim, which is like, it's crazy.
Yeah,
and they're not bashful about it. You know, they're not bashful.
So I bet you never had this happen. I had somebody put me down on their job resume. She listened to my podcast. They called me and they were like, "Hey, do you know so-and-so?" And I'm like, "No, I don't know that person."
Oh my God.
Yeah, they put down my podcast.
They put you as a reference?
Yeah. I told the company flat out.
Hey, listen. For those of you out there, put me down as a reference. Put me down as a reference. I will absolutely like go all in on it. But it'll be ridiculous. But I will do it. I'll actually ride that one into the sunset.
You're just gonna. They're not gonna tell you anything. You'll be like, "Yeah, he was really good at that thing."
Yeah, there we were. You know, hanging off the cliff. And I said to John, "We're not gonna make it." And he said, "You're goddamn wrong. We're going to make it."
Let me show you.
And then he reached up and got his finger in the crag of the cliff and he pulled me up. And that's why you should hire John Smith.
A true leader.
I'll do it. Put me down as a reference. And now it's time for the Warrior Rising Veteran Entrepreneur of the Week. Warrior Rising is the preeminent veteran entrepreneurship charity in the galaxy. Warrior Rising provides education, mentorship, grants, and more to veteran entrepreneurs. No one helps build more successful veteranpreneurs than Warrior Rising. Each week, Warrior Rising selects one veteranpreneur to feature in our program. Here's this week's. What happens when a patriotic scientist recombinates George Washington's DNA with gunpowder and a drizzle of red, white, and blue? You end up with the most amazingly American shoes possible. RDC shoes. RDC shoes are the single most patriotic pair of shoes created, ever. Generals salute them. The Marines admit the shoes are tougher than they are. And rumor has it that RDC shoes were the actual author of the Declaration of Independence. They let the framers take all the credit. From the soles to the tongue to the very laces themselves, these shoes are covered in the most comfortable red, white, and blue you'll ever feel across your feet. If Americanism didn't seal the deal, then maybe knowing that RDC Shoes donates $10 to the Woody Williams Foundation and $10 to the Congressional Medal of Honor Society with every single purchase. Great quality, unbridled patriotism, and a generous contribution to two great causes? Sign me up. Visit rdcshoes.com to get yours today. That's rdcshoes.com. Oh my God, that's wild.
Yeah.
That's wild. All right, so how did you get to your current show? Because your current show is huge.
Yeah, so that was the time I was breaking out of the box, and I started doing the Decision Hour, and then I decided I wanted something a little more consistent. I wanted to put a show out every single week. I learned over the years that, wow, the more I'm consistent, the more interaction I have with people who listen to my show. Still never looked at my stats at that point because that never mattered to me. And then 2018, I started Wake Up with Patti Katter, and that was because I wanted to break out of that box. And basically, I was shocked.
Do you do those shows live, or are they pre-recorded?
They're pre-recorded. Okay. There's a reason for that.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, you never know what goes on behind the scenes.
Yep.
And I learned my lesson the hard way. So they're pre-recorded. And so this sounds weird to a lot of people, but ever since I was young, I picked up computer really easy. I could make websites really easy. I never took a course in my life. I just started doing it. And
it was kind of that way, though.
Yeah, definitely.
It was kind of that way. I think we had like a mandatory Pascal course when I was in high school, but like when I went to college, West Point had a mandatory computer science series of classes, and it was the only thing that like I completely tested out of. And like there was literally nothing that they were teaching that I didn't already know, but we learned from like trying, and like PC Magazine used to have code in the back, and you'd like look at the code and figure out what it did, and that's how we taught ourselves back then.
Yeah.
Like, that was the generation.
Yeah, and the same thing with podcasting. You know, I started out on this little talk shoe radio, then blog talk radio, and then today I'm using Anchor for my hosting.
Anchor's awesome.
Yeah, it is.
It's not
great.
Anchor anymore.
Yeah, they switched it.
They just changed it to Podcasters by Spotify.
Yeah, Spotify. Yes. Yeah. So all the time I'm just like teaching myself and keeping current on everything. And honestly, I teach podcasting courses sometimes, like once a year. And when I do, I'm thinking, how can you not know this? Because it's just something I know.
So that's interesting. So what is your advice to a new podcaster? For example.
Not that we're pointing anyone out.
I think you're doing amazing.
Thank you.
And consistency.
Consistency.
Yes.
But what
time.
else? I mean, consistency is obviously like critical. That's you have to do that, period. But what else?
Don't be hard on yourself. I know when I first started, I didn't know what the heck I was doing. And still, if I go back and listen to some of my old episodes, I cringe. So don't hold anything against yourself. I mean, you're going to say things on the show. Sometimes you're like, why did I say that? Sometimes I can't even talk on my podcast and my tongue will get twisted. And I'm like, I'll make a joke of it. Like, I'm a podcaster. I can't even talk. Or I guess don't be afraid either what other people will say, because as I said earlier, you're damned if you do, damned if you don't. Speak your truth, your mind, and it'll work out. So
I'll never speak my truth because I believe only in the truth. So I always have to push back on that phrase because I'm like, no, but I do know what you mean. Like, just be genuine to yourself.
Yeah.
I don't worry about people hating me anymore. I've been on the internet for too long. Like, someone's gonna hate me. If you have any opinion whatsoever, someone hates you.
And that phrase, right? If you're not doing something right, then you are going to have haters.
Yeah.
But if you are doing something right, you're still going to have haters.
Yeah, there's no escaping it.
Yeah.
And the bigger your show gets, you have more. I mean, that's just the way, like, you look at Joe Rogan. I mean, more people hate that guy. And honest to God, like, I'm not, I've met Joe a few times. Like, he's a nice guy. I wouldn't call myself his friend or anything, like, but I have never seen him do something that was truly like evil or wrong or whatever. He just interviews people and lets them talk, and somehow, they're equating listening to this guy as being a bad person. And like, he has very interesting guests and asks good questions. Like, I don't get it, but you're not changing it. I mean,
I think he picks up their enemies, because it's like, oh, you gave him a platform.
Yeah.
Now you're on the chopping block too.
Yeah, that's but I would have anybody on here that has something to say.
Yep.
And I wouldn't have somebody that I considered like evil.
Yeah.
But I would have, people that I disagree with
Wouldn't you, though, like, I would really want to interview somebody like the president of Iran. Or
I don't think
like,
the president of Iran wants to sit opposite me.
I know, but wouldn't you want to, though? Like, come on, for real.
I don't know. That's a serious kill list to get on. Like, I'm thinking, because at the end of that interview, being on the Iranian kill list is different than being on the ISIS kill list. It's like ISIS, like, they had some capability, but they couldn't extend.
What would that question line be like? Would he be like, "So Nick, what's it feel like to be a dirty imperialist?" You know?
It's great.
Would you have a neutral position with him?
Oh man, how do you? That would be a tough one to have, a neutral position. I don't know if I could do it, because Iran is behind the deaths of so many service members.
Oh, that's true. And Iraq too.
I mean, Iran, Iranian freedom fighters were in Iraq, they're in Afghanistan, like, I mean, just death stacked on death, coupled with, like, I actually, I find the Iranian people to be some of the best people I've ever met. When you meet individual Persians, disciplined, like, they have an affinity for wrestling, which of course, brings them up a notch in my eye. But the government is just evil. I mean, it's an evil government, and so they're diametrically opposed, the average Persian compared to the government, but then you have like the ridiculous, segment of the population that is all in on, the jihad. Like, I don't know, it's such an...
It'd be interesting to talk about like the theocracy of it, where I would basically say, like, so do you believe that you would not have a government if it wasn't for your religion?
What would you
vice
ask?
versa?
What would you ask if you were sitting across from the Ayatollah, or,
Well, like my podcasts go, I will say, tell me a little bit about yourself and how you grew up.
You'd start there?
I would start there.
Okay. Let me take you to a mud hut.
Tell me how you grew up.
Yep.
Talk about some of the most difficult times in your life and why they were most difficult, and then we go from there, buddy.
I think that would raise some pretty awesome stories from anybody in Iran.
Man, I think I'd have to do that interview in a dress.
Put a little wig on.
I think, I'll tell you what, like, I think I'd have to be...
I can't picture
Welcome to the pressure cooker.
I'd be in drag for that one, like...
Hey, you would get a lot of viewers.
Because,
You'd get a death stare.
I think of... That's like an evil situation. I don't know if I could do it. I really have to think about that. That's a great question. You should do this for a living.
I like that. Tell me about your childhood part, though.
Oh,
I think you could find some like.
Why is he like this? What's making you think these thoughts?
And this is the crazy thing, is because I believe everyone is the hero of their own story, and I believe that with very few exceptions, most people think they are doing the right thing.
Oh yeah.
I mean, you don't really go all out unless you think you're doing the right thing. And so, but it's crazy to me Iran in the 70s was a pretty progressive, country. And now, like, it certainly is not that. And so how do you get there? And, I think we all know how it happened, but it's still crazy, like, watching it happen.
Yeah.
Who's the one guest you'd love to have on your show?
I knew you were going to ask this, and I'm not sure, because...
That's a terrible answer.
I know. I'm not really sure.
All right. How about 5 people that you would like to have on your podcast? That way you can pick from different, worlds.
Yeah. I would like to have... Let's see here. I think I would like to have Trump on my show, because, I mean, I've met him a few times.
Yeah.
And he's hilarious.
All right.
George W. Bush.
Tom does an excellent Trump. So here we can practice. We can practice
Okay.
right now.
I do not.
We can practice right now.
Yes.
Ask President Trump something.
Tell me a little bit about how you grew up.
Well, since I was young, my father, he gave me $1 million and said, you need to go out and be the best that you possibly can. I mean, the best that you can. Top notch, best cream of the crop. I started a steak line. I started hotels. I own half of New York. I really do. But you know, they all love me. They're really disappointed now since I left and I went to Florida.
That's great. Now, can you say bing bong, bing bong? Because he does that a lot too.
Bing bong, bing bong.
No, you really have to put your fist into it.
You gotta just like, bing bong,
There you go.
bing
Yes.
bong.
Yes,
Like that?
that's
Okay,
it.
got it.
All right. So Trump.
Yes. So Trump, I would interview the president of Iran. I
You
definitely
would. So that's number 2. Trump
Yeah.
and the president of Iran.
At the same time.
On opposite,
You actually comparing them to each other?
on opposite ends of the table,
Yeah.
I would
Okay.
have them sitting.
All right.
I would interview, I think Sarah Palin.
Okay.
Just I think she's an interesting person. I would like to interview Monica Lewinsky.
That would be a great one.
Yeah, I would love
She,
to.
she's pretty cool. She's pretty cool.
She has to be.
She has dealt with all of it. You know, which, you know, when you really think, I remember as a kid, I say kid, you know, I think I was, I'm trying to remember, what year was that? 92, 93?
93, I want to guess, but I'm going to make sure.
I was like heading to college. And I remember, you know, the news was all about like how bad this girl was, right? This woman, right? The poor president was almost the way it was framed. And you look at it now, and now, you know, I am in my 40s, so much closer to the president's age back then. And this is a 21-year-old kid. And I have kids that are, and I'm like, how the hell was she the villain?
Yes.
How the hell was this kid the villain of the story of the most powerful 40-something, or he might have been 50, I can't remember how old he was at the time, but like, and she was a kid, and she got dragged. And I mean,
Do you want to know when the sexual scandal
Yes.
started?
When did it break?
When she told everyone,
When did the
right?
story break?
Okay, that was 1998.
98.
Yeah,
Okay.
their actual relationship
was
was 1995
okay.
to 97.
Yeah, so I was in college for all of it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I graduated as that was breaking.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, that would be a really good interview because just like we were talking about earlier, right? You have all these people saying things about you online.
Yep.
But if they were to meet this girl in person, would they still do that? I mean, people did.
Yeah.
It was
They were ruthless. I mean, it was the joke. I mean, I remember it being a joke on Saturday Night Live.
yeah.
It was like a recurring joke. And he walked away pretty scot-free,
Yeah.
and her life was destroyed for, she couldn't get a job. I mean, like, you know, I don't know how adults back then spun the story in that direction. Like it's every time I think about it, it bothers me because, and I'm not one of these people that's like, you know, older people can't date younger people or whatever. Like, you're an adult, but you know, if my wife dumped me, would I ever date a 21-year-old? I wouldn't. I just wouldn't. Like, we have nothing in common. Literally no life experience. And this is like a married president. Yeah, it's such an absurd, it's such an absurd situation. So,
I would want to know, like, between Clinton and Hillary, like, did you decide then and there that this like marriage was more of a business transaction now, and it would be detrimental if we split up, and that's why they're still together, or like what goes on with that? It's weird when you get that well known, right?
I think once you're at that level, you're not. You're an institution.
I mean, she took something that most women might be embarrassed about and made it into a profitable book.
Who else? I think we're up to four.
Yeah,
We
and
got
then
one
George
more.
Bush.
George Bush.
Yeah, I would like to interview him.
Yep.
You know, he was the president when Ken was in Iraq. Unfortunately, he didn't sign Ken's retirement paperwork, though, because
What's
there
up
was a
with
new
that?
president. There was a different president. So
First question.
It's in the drawer now.
That'd be your first question, right? Why didn't you sign
This?
Can you please just sign this?
So what's next for you? What is the next? So you've got this hit show, millions of people listen to you every week. Where do you want to go from here?
I don't know. It's like wherever I'm supposed to go next. I have a trip coming up to go to Guatemala next
Awesome.
month.
Is that for fun or is that work?
It's a little of both. I'm doing some humanitarian work there,
Cool.
and I'm excited about it. I like doing that, so I'm trying to do more things that I enjoy again, because now I am really confident in my show. I don't have any worries. Everything is going smoothly in my life, thankfully, like at this point in life.
Yeah, definitely do
yeah,
this.
yeah.
Because every time I think life is good, something happens. Literally
Yeah.
every time,
Yeah, so I'm just kind of taking it day by day and just implementing more things that I like to do in life. So
Yeah.
not all focused on work.
So you've written a few books. Is there a book project on the horizon?
I'm writing another book right now.
What's this one
and
about?
So this one is about, can I say a bad word on the show?
Yeah, you can say whatever
Like
you
a really bad word?
Yeah.
Okay. So it's basically how,
I'm like, what word is it going to be?
like a really, the F one. It's basically how never to get screwed over or fucked over again.
Yep.
Because there were times in my life that I kind of was naive and I always thought everybody wanted to help everybody. And so there were a couple situations I was in where people would use me for my connections, or I had a guy scam a lot of money from our family and we thought he was a friend of ours. So I'm writing a book about that, and I'm creating a course about that as well. So,
Okay.
yeah.
See, I feel like you're moving away from like positive Patti to like
It's
vengeance Patti.
No, it's still going to be really positive because it's going to say
How
like,
dark does it get?
it tells all my
Is it like cut off their hands and you know,
collect this. I have a skull collector now, so I don't have to do
put
that
their
myself.
head on a pike outside your lawn, and you will never have anyone come at you ever again.
Except the HOA.
Yeah, but basically it's just like, hey, we can have these bad things in life happen, but here's the red flags to look out for so you won't have those things keep repetitively happening in your life,
Yep.
and how you can move forward positively in your business and in your personal life. So
That's cool.
it
So I
still
guess
stays in.
That's cool.
Because of your influence then, and who you've known in the past, and the fact that you've been screwed over by these, I guess you block all of that out and don't let it. So you really have to look inward for whatever you're going to do next, right?
Yes. And something that happened this year to help me look inward literally was I had a really bad tear in my retina. So I lost part of my vision in my left eye. And
Permanently, or is it?
So it's better now.
Okay.
But I had to have 2 surgeries on that eye and then a preventative surgery on my right eye. So I was literally only able to lay on my left side for 7 weeks. And I had a lot of inward soul searching to do.
My dad had. He had. I'm blanking on what it was, but he had like a some kind of mild degenerative condition in one of his eyes, and it was a similar thing where they had to go in and they had to like fix something, burn something, and then they had to fill the eye with
A gas bubble.
and he had for like a month he basically couldn't move much. It drove him nuts because even in his mid 70s he calls it tinkering, but tinkering will be like, oh, I rebuilt a car, like I've built a bookshelf, it's always like some project. He was stuck in, so it was hard, but it did fix the situation. So do you have is it like a genetic thing that they're worried about with the other eye?
Well, probably I'm really bendable, so I have never talked about this on the show. So I'm super flexible. I have something called Ehlers-Danlos syndrome.
Yep.
So I bend really easy.
My
and
wife has it.
Okay,
Yeah.
yeah. So that's
Yep.
something to be aware of with the retina, because that you're prone to retina tears.
Oh, perfect.
Yes, but your eye doctor should be able to tell you this, but they
Okay.
don't for some reason. So my new eye doctor, he's amazing. He's like, well, you have all the signs that your right retina is going to be tearing because you have all the symptoms.
Wow.
And so they did a preventative laser treatment on that eye.
Okay.
So yeah.
All right, I'll pass that on.
Yeah.
Great.
Yeah, we can talk more about this. Yes. I have a great doctor. But yeah, that was pretty scary. Actually, just a couple of days ago on Friday, I had to go to the eye doctor to make sure the gas bubble was completely gone so I could fly here.
So how are you going to market this book?
I don't know. I might know a marketing agency that I might can talk to.
How have you done your books in the past? So I'm always curious because writing a book was way harder than I thought it would be, and marketing it is easy because I've just done that forever. But I expected that the publishing houses would do more than they actually do for all of the things, like the marketing and everything. What has your experience been thus far, and kind of what are you thinking this time around?
So usually I just market to my podcast listeners, and that's what I've always done. This time around, I am not positive where I'm going with it because I think that it's an important topic that a lot of people don't talk about, and there's so many people, who hasn't gotten screwed over at one time or another, you know?
Yeah, if you've lived and done anything, you've been screwed over.
So marketing, I'll probably still, through my podcast, I have a group on Facebook. A lot of my listeners are super, super faithful. You are going to start seeing that if you haven't already. I'm sure you have, though, with even Ranger Up. But I had a guy buy a new TV so he could watch my show on Roku. Roku is just an app. Wow. You could have just done that, you know?
Wow.
So podcast is a great way to market.
So the first books that you've done two, right?
Yes.
Two
so
other
I did
books?
two, and then I was also co-author of a few books. And those books I didn't have to promote because this lady did. They were the Faith Deployed series by Jocelyn Green. So I was in those books as well.
Very cool.
Yeah.
When people get screwed over, they don't want to talk about it.
Yeah, it's
almost like something,
embarrassing.
and that's kind of how it proliferates, right? Because then they don't want to warn other people, because in order to warn them, they gotta do that.
It's super embarrassing. I was actually talking to Hollywood and telling him what happened to us. So we were scammed in a big way. So this guy befriended our family. He befriended our friends. We thought he was a multimillionaire doing great. We would go to, we would have similar birthday parties that we would attend to. He had us to Christmas parties. He is one of the biggest Ponzi scheme artists in the U.S., and he was just I forget what his sentence was. He was just sentenced to 28 years in prison or something like that.
Good.
So we worked with the FBI to, I talked at the sentencing, I talked at his hearing.
Wow.
I
Is this
was a witness.
Were
It
you
was
just
huge.
one of multiple families or something?
Yeah, so he stole $80 million from people.
Oh my God.
Yeah, it was a biggie. And from us, he stole $100,000. I recorded on the FBI podcast, and that's coming out soon, I think the end of this month. And
Wow.
yeah.
That's no joke.
It was no
I
joke.
would be very upset.
It was more upsetting. My husband was a lot more pissed than I was.
Yep.
To me, I was like, dude, you were supposed to be our friend.
I know.
Yeah, how do they do that?
Yeah.
Sociopaths. They're sociopaths, you know,
Yeah.
and it's having worked with people in the intelligence community that have some of those attributes to be able to do what they do,
Yeah.
you know, but when there's a spectrum of, being a sociopath, and the people that are all the way here, they really don't care what they do to other people as long as they benefit.
Yeah, that same day that the FBI had been to his house to tell him he is under investigation, he showed up at our friend's birthday party. We're all having lunch together. He sat having lunch with us, didn't say a peep, oh, the FBI was at our house today, nothing. Gave us all hugs, happy birthday to our friend, left,
Wow.
Keeping
And then-
the show going.
And then got
Yeah.
arrested?
Yeah.
And you had no idea at this point?
Nope, none.
Okay, I could see why you wouldn't trust anybody.
That is wild. And also, he stole $80 million. A smart person, if you got away with it once, you'd probably fade off, right? And
Yeah,
but they can't.
How many
They-
millions do you take? I mean,
They can't stop.
yeah, and his story was spun so big too. And in my head, I'm thinking, he probably thought in his own twisted mind that maybe he did have intentions of paying us all back. It was like a loan.
Yeah.
So I keep trying to hope the best for him, oh gosh, maybe he was intending to pay us back. But then we found out, shortly after he took our money, he went and bought a Maserati.
I've typically found, and again, I've never been in that situation, but I've typically found that the big liars that I've met, they do convince themselves
Yeah.
that this is what happened.
Yeah.
Many years ago, I employed a guy, and it's crazy because I considered him one of my best friends, and I still have a lot of empathy for him. He was a combat vet, he actually had done heroic things, and for whatever reason, he had to embellish. He had a couple of deployments. He told everybody. He told everybody he had multiple. Like I won't say the exact number because I don't want people to like search for him. But he's like a very high number of deployments at a time when no one but the baddest dudes had that number of deployments. And what finally got him pinched was he lied about an award that was a very high award. That, not quite the Medal of Honor, but awfully close.
Why?
And when he said it, multiple guys were like, and they, everyone looked him up because there aren't,
It's a short list.
It's a short list.
And you could be like, nope, not on here.
It's a short list. He wasn't on it. He got, he got approached. Then it was like, did the whole, well, mine is classified kind of thing. And then everyone knows. Then it's like, this isn't real.
Oh, gosh, yeah.
And it was terrible because one of his friends reached out and was like, listen, he was a hero. He saved my life. He saved this guy's life. I don't know why he's doing this, but can you look out for him? And I actually did reach out to the people that usually destroy these guys. Like, we got him help. But, he, in his head, had said it enough times that he actually believed a lot of the things that he was saying.
Oh, I've seen it too. I've seen it in the military community because I help with a lot of nonprofits, and we see it. You have they're really, really heroes. I mean, they're heroes without the stories.
They're here. They don't need them.
Right.
Yeah. They don't need them.
Yeah, there were groups contacting you, right? That were like, our specialty is we find veterans that are lying and we go after them.
Yeah.
Yeah, I remember that.
Yeah. So it's they say it enough times, they believe it, and then even the guys that don't believe it, like once they've built this persona,
right,
they'll defend it to the death because once it gets ripped apart, they're left with nothing.
Yeah. I remember sitting at the table with this guy. His name's Mike DeCorda. We used to call him Muscle Mike. And I remember sitting at him before I gave him our money, and I said, I want to make sure that this money, we're going to get it back, we're going to get this interest back. And he's like, yes, unless the entire global economy crashes, you'll get your money back. So we were really confident, but he exuberated such confidence in himself. And he did have like a really nice new office building and a beautiful mansion and all these things. Yeah. So he scammed a lot of people.
Yeah, I'll bet.
Some of our friends gave a lot more. Some, it was over $1 million in investments. And so it's, I learned the hard way, but I was embarrassed to talk about it for so long because I'm like, oh my gosh.
Yeah, it sucks.
But,
it sucks. And of course, you're always going to have those people that were like, oh, that would have never happened to me. But,
if you're friends with someone and it took a while for him to build our trust too.
Years, I'm sure.
2 years.
Yeah, that's a long. A regular person does not think someone's going to game you for 2 years in order to get an investment.
Yeah, and invite us to really fancy Christmas parties. Like, we weren't giving him anything at that point,
Oh, he's just spinning that web.
He groomed us.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
That's wild. Yeah. So that's the impetus for the book. That's cool.
Yeah, it is.
Are you publishing through someone, or do you think you're going to self-publish?
I'm going to self-publish.
Just because you have the audience at this point.
Yeah. And I even I self-published for the other two as well. I just knew it was a good idea because I have a background in journalism, so I know how to write. I know how to, technically, I know how to market myself. I've been doing it with my podcast for so long, and it worked. So my first book was a kind of like, let me get my feet wet, kind of see how I like this or don't like it. Yep. And then I created a journal, which can be used along with that book about stress and how to de-stress. And it's like a journal you write in every single day. But this book is going to be different. I want to really publicize it because I think that there are a lot of embarrassed people. Like, you don't want to talk about the times you get screwed over. Like, who wants to do that? But that's how you get stronger, too.
That's cool. I with Scars and Stripes, that was my first foray into publishing, and we were with Simon and Schuster for that, and they were great. Like, it was very nice having an editor. Amar Deol was our editor, and he was actually the reason we chose Simon and Schuster, because there were like 7 offers on the table, and we basically interviewed all of the editors, and he was the one that I was like, I can work with this guy and I trust him. And so that part of it was great. The part that wasn't great is you come to find out that these organizations actually don't know how to market a book at all.
Yeah.
Like, they really have no idea how to market a book. For them, marketing is, maybe we'll get you on some shows, we'll do some PR for like a week or two, and like that's it. Whereas, we had like influencers involved, we were running ads, we made videos, we had like a 4.5 month plan.
We had the book on Times Square.
Yeah, I mean, we built up to the moment of launch. By the time we launched, we already knew that unless the New York Times really hated us, that we made the list, because we had sold more than, more than like half the list at least every week prior. So it was like, all right, unless they just hate us, which is possible, it happens, like we should make the list. And then the first week we had a plan for that, and Tim was on a number of shows, and so there was like a plan. If we hadn't made the plan was essentially going to be like a couple shows and a press release, and I was like, it's weird. It's weird that industry, and I've spoken to other people from other giant houses, it's been the same. Like, it's weird that industry doesn't know how to sell their product.
I think, though, it's because you were military, right? You're a veteran. You learned that foundation of what real hard work is. Because I've worked for secular civilian marketers.
Yep.
And I see how lazy some of them can be. Really, at the end of the day, they're lazy. They'll just do what they have to do to get by. And if they, give you those deliverables, like, they're just making it, right?
Yeah.
So I think that you had that background and know how to accomplish the mission.
I mean, I hope that's true, but I also think, like, everyone here, all of my employees at Diesel Jack Media, like, they really like what they do. And they want the clients to win.
But they have a great leader.
What's that?
They have a great,
talking about Hollywood?
They have a great leader.
Yeah, Hollywood's awesome. He's great. Albert's pretty good too. No, but it is interesting. Like, I'm always amazed at, in every industry that I've touched, whether you're talking about apparel, or you're talking about Hollywood, or you're talking about marketing, it's amazing how many successful people actually have no idea what they're doing. They really don't know what they're doing, and that's why I really liked what you said before. Like, every time I ask you, like, well, how did you do this? And you're like, I don't know, I just did it. How often is that true in life? Like, you just, instead of trying to make something perfect, you just start. That seems to be the way that you've done things.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's funny, because some people are like, oh, you must have all this education.
Yeah.
But I'm like, no, I do it because I listen to my gut. And that's really helped me come a long way. It's just like sitting back, being quiet, being still, not listening to everybody telling me what I should do or who I should be.
Yep.
And just really, like, listening to myself. And if your gut tells you to do something, you either already know how to do it. It's like somehow inside of you already, is what I believe, or you find the means or the way to learn how to do it.
Figure it out.
But but it just is like a natural thing to me.
So do we have a name for this book? Or you want to hold that for a little while
I
longer?
don't have it quite yet.
Okay.
And I'm actually working with my business mentor. He's amazing in it. He's helped me with my podcast too, behind the scenes, just kind of mentoring me.
Do you want to give him or her a shout out?
Yeah, Mike Young. His name is Mike Young, the Makeover Master.
Is that what he calls himself?
Yep.
The Makeover Master?
So he doesn't call himself that anymore. But yeah, so when I first met him, that's what he would do. And it wasn't like appearances. It was literally like, for me, it was helping me get from being that caregiver to like, myself.
Yeah.
So he's like a life coach kind of guy.
Oh my gosh, yeah, he's amazing.
The makeover master.
Yeah, I wouldn't throw that away. That's pretty good, man.
The makeover master.
I don't think he's going to be
Michael
able to throw it away now.
He's amazing. He really is. And, he's actually taught me a lot to, like, listen to myself, be confident enough to do that. I don't even know what I was going to say about him, but he's just great.
But he's great at making over.
He is. He
Emotionally.
Really, he is.
Emotionally making someone over.
Yeah, because for me, too, I was really insecure when I first met him, like, because I felt like I was this military spouse, and how am I supposed to start my own show? Who am I to do that, you know? You have these imposter syndrome thoughts once in a while.
Yeah, it's tough sometimes, right? It really is tough sometimes, because I spend a lot of time going, even on my own, even on my own social media, I'm like, I don't want to be that guy that's giving advice all the time, because who the fuck am I?
Yeah.
Like, I really feel that way. And Hollywood's very positive. He's like, well, you've done this, you've done that, you can share experiences. And I like that about this show, because we can talk about it, but I don't have all the answers. I've screwed up so many things, it's embarrassing, and but you do have to have the confidence you can get things done.
Yeah, and you have to know, too, that every person doesn't have the answer. Like, nobody has all the answers to everything.
I think if we really think about it, everyone from us to the president all the way down, no one really has the answers. And that's the scariest thing, is we're a bunch of fancy monkeys doing the best we can.
Yeah. I know.
Gotta chill.
I mean, even when you ask me who do I want on my podcast, I think, I never have gotten excited about celebrities or a certain group of people or anything like that. I just kind of listen to my gut and think, like, what do my listeners want? And they want the truth. They want, like, you. They need your kind of podcasting. They need my podcasting, because we're kind of, your niche is, like, really breathtaking too. It's really nice because you went. It's breathtaking.
Hey, all you out there, you're breathtaking. Take my breath away.
Is that a butterfly for me?
He's growing wings. No, but really, I mean, you're very truthful. Everybody wants the truth these days, and I love that you're doing this show where you're not screaming at other people, and you're just, like, letting them talk.
Except for Tom. We're allowed to yell at Tom.
Yeah, you're allowed to yell at me.
Don't yell too loud, though. You don't want him to collect your skull.
I think he calls it harvesting.
It's a proper terminology, yeah.
I just picture Bates Motel now.
It's much more edgy than that.
No, but yeah, I like that you're just branching out. I think that's cool.
It's been fun. I'm really enjoying it. The way I look at it is, I think about, will I be able to have an interesting conversation with this person? Like, if I think I'm going to sit down and the person's going to be yelling at me, or the person's going to be unwilling to honestly have a conversation, and, like, I don't care if the opinion's different, but it has to come from an honest place and not trying to say what people think they should say or whatever,
right?
Then I'm not interested. But if they're willing to have an honest conversation and kind of, like, discuss whatever, I'm game. That's how I approach it.
And people want that. They're so tired of the drama on the news. They can't
You don't believe the news.
Exactly.
No one like, I don't care what station you're listening to, no one believes it anymore, which is a problem. Like, it's a problem because it's getting harder and harder to discern what is the truth. And when we're not operating from the same truth, coming back to the, me joking with you before about, your truth, but, like, if we're not operating on the same truth, not the same opinion about the truth,
right?
But if we disagree fundamentally on what the truth is, it's very hard to come together. And so when I think about who the enemy is, I don't think about the enemy as being Republican or Democrat. I think about the enemy as being people who purposefully obfuscate the truth. That's one of the big reasons why we do the show, is I want to talk to people and actually hear what they have to say.
Yeah, and that's why podcasting really blew up too.
Yeah.
Because there's so much truth out there now. Yeah. You just have to weed through it and find it.
Yeah, I mean, and even if you don't like somebody or you don't like their opinion, being able to hear how they think about things, I think is incredibly important.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You can't condense international politics in a 5-minute spot. You can't.
It's a 2-minute
Or
spot.
2 minute, yeah.
You know, a sound bite.
Like, this is something where you're going to have to break it down, and each of those might be like an hour-long segment, but they don't want that.
All right. So before we do the quick rapid fire round, are there any questions that you would have wished that I asked you that I have not asked you?
What's my deepest, darkest secret? No.
What is your deepest, darkest secret?
We want to know.
I really don't like talking about myself.
Well,
That's it.
you've chosen the wrong profession, Adam.
I know. I don't like talking about myself, but I interview people, and I like
Yep.
hearing their stories, and so I'm willing to sacrifice.
But you came on to talk about yourself today.
I did. It's because you asked me, though. I wouldn't just go on anybody's show. I've actually been asked to be on a lot of shows, and I don't say yes to everything.
Well, we appreciate you coming. I certainly appreciate you coming. So thank you for that.
Thank you.
Imagine a media agency that can make a documentary that qualifies for Academy Award voting. Imagine another that created a Billboard charting music video for Five for Fighting. Imagine another that has raised so much money for nonprofits in its first year working on the Classy.org platform that at the end of the year, it was named as only the second marketing partner in Classy's history. Imagine another firm that can cover your events anywhere on planet Earth and provide a compelling series of videos about those events immediately and to your needs. And imagine another still that can help your e-commerce business take it to the next level. Now imagine that they're all the same business, Diesel Jack Media. Some of you might be saying, hey, Nick, isn't that your company? And to that I answer, can a company like Diesel Jack Media really be owned? Or can it merely be coaxed out like a beautiful butterfly on a spring day? As you listen to this podcast that, by the way, Diesel Jack Media created, you may be asking yourself, what's our secret? It's simple. We try not to suck. Sounds easy, right? It should be. But somehow marketing companies and media agencies always seem to get it wrong. You see, we don't make PowerPoints about doing work. We do the work because we like the work. And if one of our ideas doesn't work, you know what we do? We try another one again and again and again until our ideas start to work. Because not quitting until it's right is at the heart of not sucking. And as previously mentioned, that's what we try not to do here. Diesel Jack Media. We try not to suck. Visit us at dieseljackmedia.com. That is dieseljackmedia.com. I think we're ready for the fast round. Do you have the hat, sir?
What?
This is one that we talked before about things we've improved. So,
Okay.
but
Something about it
That's
in a
my
hat just makes it so much cooler.
So at the beginning of the show, it was just me kind of throwing the questions out off the top of my head. And we found sometimes that was too slow. And then we started having the group do it. And then now it's just, I don't even know what's in here.
Okay.
So if
That's
it's like,
fun.
if I look at it and I'm like, this is just offensive, you'll just see me throw it
Oh,
on
I
the
don't
ground.
care. I don't think I'll care. You can ask me anything.
Well, you don't know the staff at Diesel Jack Media.
It's
so.
okay. It will liven it
But
up.
the first question that I always ask everybody, no matter what, and the whole idea here is we're quick answering these, right?
Okay.
What is the toughest animal you think you could defeat in hand-to-hand combat?
A porcupine.
Porcupine? Now I need to know how, like in your mind, how are you defeating the porcupine?
Well, there is a true story behind this.
Oh, you've already fought a porcupine?
Well, kind of, but it was unfair. So I was hunting for the very, very first time ever. And,
Porcupine hunting?
Well, I didn't know I was sitting in a porcupine nest. Because the porcupine wasn't there. My husband's like, here, sit in this little tree area. It's great. So I'm sitting there, and the next thing you know, this porcupine comes up to me, and it's going, eh. And like making these noises, and it like stood up on its legs and stuff.
Yeah.
I ended up shooting it because I didn't know what to do.
Did it leave behind a bunch of small porcupine babies?
I didn't know. I didn't see any babies. So
This is like a Chevy Chase film.
Yeah, like a shot.
You know?
Are we talking like
So
shotgun?
you shot it
Yeah.
Shotgun.
with a shotgun at point blank range?
I was scared. I didn't know what it was going to do to me. It was like making...
What was your husband's reaction?
He wasn't sitting by me anymore. He left me there. So he left me in this little area.
And he was
And he was in his
Yeah,
tree area,
yeah.
his little tree stand. And he heard the gunshot, so he thought I shot a deer.
Oh my God.
And did he walk up and he was like, wrong species?
He's like, what did you shoot? Where's the deer? And I was like, This wasn't a deer.
Wow. All right. You're the first guest that has been able to answer that question. Truthfully, we've had people say lion.
Oh
And
my
I'm
gosh.
like, oh, really? You think so? All right. Here we go. If someone wrote a biography about you, what do you think the title would be?
How to get, oh my gosh, untwisted.
Untwisted. I like it. I like it. All right. All right. Here we go. After you survive the apocalypse, what will your new job be?
Housework.
Will there be houses?
All right. All right. Do you drive in the left lane? And if so, do you move over to let people pass you?
Do I drive in the left lane?
Do you drive in the left lane?
I do, yeah.
And if so, if someone's coming up behind you, do you move over to let them pass you?
No.
Oh my God.
Oh, no.
I go faster.
We're finding so many of these.
Oh, and you know, so far, all of the non-left lane movers have been ladies. I'm not trying to be a misogynist. I'm just stating fact.
I go faster, though. I don't let them go around me. I go faster so they can't.
All right,
yeah.
all right. If you had to replace your hands with something other than claws, what would you put at the end of your arms?
Forks.
Oh, that's great. That's
Salads beware.
great. What dumb thing did you believe for a really long time?
I believed that I had to make other people like me.
Okay, that's a good one. That's deep, but we're gonna just keep
Yeah.
moving. When was the last time you screamed at the top of your lungs?
Maybe last week.
What was that about?
There was a frog in my bathroom.
Did you shoot it with a shotgun?
No, I captured him though, and I did let him outside. It just startled me because I didn't expect that to be in there.
Your life starts over right now, but you're 18 years old. You're going to forget everything except for one skill. What skill do you keep?
Like a skill.
You decide. You
shooting.
define it however
Shooting.
you want. Shooting?
Yeah.
So
that's
you're
important.
waking up at 18, forgetting everything, but you can shoot.
You want to know how to shoot?
We can
Yeah.
still deal with that porcupine.
What's your go-to karaoke song?
It's gonna be a Christmas song.
Hit me with it.
Like "Let It Snow."
Okay, you have to sing 10 seconds of Let It
No.
Snow. Here we go.
I know who put that in there.
Here we go. Are you ready?
Okay.
Go.
The weather outside is frightful, but the world is so delightful. Da 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 da. Let it snow, let it snow, let it snow. I am horrible at lyrics, and I told that to
That
Hollywood.
was terrible.
I know. I told him I'm really bad.
That
at
was
lyrics.
terrible.
I
I'm
know.
a very positive person, but I want you to know that that was really bad. All right. Last one. Here
I
we
was
go.
in choir too.
Here we go. You were in choir, and
Yeah.
that's what you gave
I
us?
could probably sing, but I can't.
But you
on
just don't
camera.
want to.
Yeah.
What has been your favorite age so far?
Now, right now, literally.
As Jesus Jones once said, right here, right now,
Yep.
there is no other place I'd want to be.
I am so happy with myself right now.
That's awesome.
Great.
Yeah.
I'm really happy for you then.
Thank you.
And with that, I'm Nick Palmisciano, and it has been an honor to have Patti Katter on today. Thank you so much for all of your insight into how not to be fucked with, starting a podcast, and really lasting in a very challenging industry for a long time. Like,
It was
it's
a-
no joke.
Yeah, it was a male-dominated industry too when I started.
And now it's still a male-dominated industry, but you're doing great in it.
Thanks.
Thanks so much.
Thank you.